I'm Gary Conjunctivitis from Cultaholic.com, and I have conjunctivitis. I'm not just a pretentious twat who likes to wear sunglasses indoors. We're here today to do some more Gary YouTubing, this time in the form of a lovely, lovely tier list about WWE couples. And just in case the title's a bit misleading for you, we're not doing actual real-life WWE couples, because to be frank with you, it's none of our business, and that would be a little bit weird. Joining me today is another Gary YouTube who he appears to have the head and the shoulders and the hair of Sam Driver from Cultaholic. How are you doing, Gary?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I'm all right. I'm coming back to Newcastle soonish, I hope. So my flat's been alone for 2 months. I'm quite worried about what I'm going to find in it.
Dust and snakes, no doubt about it.
I'm like, I know I took everything out. I know I took the bins out. I know I emptied the fridge, but I'm still paranoid that I'm going to open the fridge and there's just going to be loads of rotten food. It's just, I'm proper like...
I think they call it a la carte in France, don't they? I've got no idea what I'm saying. Hit the intro, man. So just in case you haven't been here before, we have about 20. We'll have exactly 20. I don't know why I said about. We have exactly 20 WWE storyline couples. Some better than the others. We have several tiers here. We have the best, lovely, 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 all right, just about bearable, get in the bin. And we're going to rank these, Sam, based on the success they had together, how nice they were together in storyline, just how lovey-dovey all things are. Because as we all know, me and Sam are husband, and we are all of those things, aren't we, Sam?
Yeah. So yesterday was 1 year to the day since we got married.
Was it the 28th of May? Is that the anniversary?
28th of May. Yeah.
Bloody hell! How does time fly? But we do have a big announcement to make at the end of the video, and don't you tell me that's not Gary YouTubing from page 3 of the textbook. Wait until the end to find something out that is really, really inconsequential and completely meaningless. But we're going to start things off, Sam, with Santino Marella and Beth Phoenix, otherwise known as Glamorella. When I say Glamorella to you, what pops into your dirty head?
I just see Santino winding Beth Phoenix up, and then Beth Phoenix getting a bit aggro with him, maybe roughing him around a little bit, and then all of a sudden they end up kissing. I just remember that kept happening. It would be like backwards and forwards in an argument, and then all of a sudden they'd be smooching. There was like, she'd make her entrance and he'd come out and gently try and pat her on the behind, and she'd get angry with him, and then there were times where she just beat the crap. But I honestly... It's just such a mental... Well, Santino in a love angle, it works so well.
He loved a love angle, Santino, because this one came after the one that Santino had with Maria, which we haven't included in this little thing we're doing here. But I think this was trying to recreate the magic that Santino and Maria had, and it didn't quite hit. It obviously had its moments, but it didn't quite hit the heights that Santino and Maria did. It started when Santino issued an open challenge on Raw. Who would announce accept the challenge? It would be Beth Phoenix. They would have a wrestle. Then Santino would lose to D'Lo Brown the following week, and Beth confronted him. They grappled for a bit, and then they kissed. Yes.
Which is weird, because when you think about it, this was like 2007, 2008?
Around that time, aye.
Yeah, and then you just throw a name like D'Lo Brown in, and you completely forget that D'Lo just kept popping back up.
He had that really inconsequential return, didn't he, when he had the singlet on Raw and stuff, and everyone, I like D'Lo Brown, mate. Who doesn't like D'Lo Brown? He was fantastic in Dark Side of the Ring, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, he was absolutely great. He was like the breakout star of that episode.
And then the heights, I think, of this partnership in terms of in-ring success. The pair of, the Glamorella pair, defeated Kofi Kingston, Mickie James at SummerSlam, winning the women's and Intercontinental titles in the same thing. That's some success.
That is some success. Like, a lot of couples will go on to just have angles without any gold or without anything else like that. A lot of couples will just sort of be a 2-week thing, 3-week thing, and then disappear.
That's what I was hoping me and you would be, Sam. But no, we're still sat here a year later, still married.
We're not really a couple, are we? We just sort of got married. It's like we keep forgetting.
The magic's gone. And after a lot of tomfoolery, we made it all the way through until WrestleMania 25, and this is where the relationship turned sour when Santina The twin sister of Santino rocked up and won that battle royal. Beth became angry and went, see you later, Santino, you bitch.
Well, the Santino thing's just tasteless anyway. But it's such a weird one to start with this because it's just one of those proper fringe relationships in WWE. What are you thinking for it? I reckon it's at least lovely.
I was going to say at least lovely. I think we start off. We're going to obviously rejig it at the end, but I think just to, with it being the first one, I think Glamarella is the definition of lovely. Unless it becomes the definition of the best.
Sometimes it was a bit weird. Sometimes it didn't quite work. But then sometimes it was really funny and it made you smile. So that's sort of like, you got to weigh up those things. And
that's the thing.
They had some success.
When you think about Glamarella, and every time they reference it on WWE TVs and the countdowns and whatnot, it's always sort of looked back on with fondness. Yeah. So I guess that means it's in lovely. And next up we have a bit of I guess it's a bit more monumental in terms of relationships. We have Lady Bowles and Triple H.
Oh, well, this is, in terms of success, there's nothing greater in the wrestling industry in terms of couple power.
No.
So, yeah, the storylines have been involved with, some of them have been great, some of them have been dreadful, but they've been around for years. Well, I think there's nowhere but the best for these two.
Where do you rank how they got together in terms of being good and or bad? Because I'll run you through it, Sam. It happened after a storyline where Vince McMahon had Stephanie abducted by The Undertaker, and then they were going to have some sort of unholy marriage. Stone Cold saves the day. Steph then gets into a relationship with Tess. Steph was like lovely back here. You couldn't hate Stephanie McMahon back here. She was about 5 years old. She wasn't 5 years old. She was about 19-something years old, maybe, and she was just like, an innocent, sweet girl next door kind of thing, even though she was the daughter of Vince McMahon. Relationship with Test. Then we had the Love her or Leave her match between Shane and Test at SummerSlam. Then we get to the in-ring wedding between Test and Stephanie. Triple H walks out and shows that he took Steph to Vegas, and despite being initially pure angry about being... Well, I think, is date rape the right word?
Well, yeah. She was drugged. She was at least spiked or something.
She was spiked. She was unconscious in the car. Triple H went to the little white chapel, got married without her knowing. But despite being angry, it all turned out that Stephanie was in on the ruse.
She was in on it all along, yeah.
And did it to get back at Vince. So the McMahon-Helmsley era began.
Yeah, and with that came some great moments. With that come some very hard, very trying times as wrestling fans. But come on, Ross, they got married in Vegas, so did we. Banger in the best.
Oh, God, banger in the best. What a sentence that is.
They've got taste.
They do belong in the best. We'd have to go through the McMahon-Helmsley era. They had the stuff with Mankind, the love triangle. I guess this is where we could rank it down a bit because they've had a few problems along the way, as we all do in relationships. We had the stuff with Kurt Angle, where Kurt Angle sort of wormed his way in for a bit, and Steph ended up managing Kurt Angle for a bit. Triple H obviously took exception to this, and then it was around the 2002 angle they did with Chris Jericho, where of course Jericho played second fiddle to Stephanie McMahon's dog, who got ran over in the end, rest in peace and all that stuff.
I loved the dog angle. Is that the Triple H dog angle, the divorce angle? The divorce angle where Stephanie McMahon hired an actor who I think he was doing commercials for some sort of hotel resort holiday thing to fake a pregnancy. Stephanie faked getting pregnant. I think it was Linda McMahon found the tape and was like, Triple H, I need to show you something here. Triple H puts the VHS in and he's like, oh, welcome to Sandals. And he's like, oh my God, the doctor is also a hotel rep, a holiday rep, whatever they want to call it. So they faked the pregnancy. They were then going to renew the wedding vows, and then Triple H came up with that line, which I still find spine-tingling to this day. You no good lying bitch. We are through. Whoa. Then he destroys the set in the ring. And then if you want to, I guess, bring the issues in they had in with Randy Orton, a psychopath breaking into houses and stuff and kissing Stephanie. Then you had the weird power trip period as well with the Authority, that entire angle.
Oh God, that one.
You had Steph at Mania 32 just standing on top of a big stone shouting at people.
Yeah.
They've had some crazy moments for sure.
Yeah, that was a very good Cher impression, I reckon, from her. In terms of look, anyway. But I think we have to put Stephanie and Triple H in the best.
Without question.
They've had their issues, but they've stayed together through thick and thin.
They're probably the most iconic wrestling couple that exists.
Yeah.
Because of the real world ramifications of their relationship, they're probably the most famous, I'd say. Other than, obviously, we had John Cena and Nikki Bella, but...
Oh,
that didn't.
That's not in this video. That's too awkward. Too awkward. Turtle shaky palm tree. That. So next up, Sam, we have. It's not a controversial one at all. We have Kane and Lita. So this storyline begins where Kane was sort of threatening to harm Lita endlessly. Matt Hardy, who was at the time Lita's boyfriend. I don't think they were married. I don't think they ever got married, did they, in real life?
I don't think they were ever married now.
So they got Matt Hardy would obviously defend Lita from being harassed by Kane. That would kick off the storyline. Kane would repeatedly attack Hardy and seduce Lita. I've got written down here. And I don't know what. Every time Kane would do this, he would laugh. And it gave me the willies.
It was so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So uncomfortable, which was the point, but it was just so uncomfortable.
But then we got to a weird point in time where Kane was tying up Lita backstage and then somehow wrangled her a women's championship shot. It was, you give and take in relationships, don't you?
Yeah, but it all came to like a horrible end, like a very uncomfortably horrible end. It was one of those weird periods because like not long after this we had the live sex celebration. We had like
more on that later. We're going to cover Edge and Lita as well, don't worry. But yes, as Sam said, things got awkward very quickly. Lita revealed she was pregnant, and then because of that, Matt Hardy was going to propose to Lita. But then Kane came in like a wrecking ball, a baldy ball, and claimed that he was the father. And it turned out that Kane was indeed the father. Then we got to a Death Do Us Part match at SummerSlam where Kane won. He beat Matt Hardy, which meant that Lita had to marry Kane. But Lita didn't like Kane, so she rocked him to the wedding in a black dress, while Kane had the sassiest, most pristine white suit I've ever seen on a man. It was fantastic.
This is like peak wrestling relationship in terms of the fact that it's like a Mexican soap opera, like a telenovela. Like, just when you think it can't get any worse, like somebody else walks through the door and it's like...
but this one got worse, Sam, because everyone loves a miscarriage angle in the wrestling. I don't know why they do these when there's real life issues for people. God almighty
the thing is, it's not a proven commodity. Like, they've done this before and it's never worked. It's uncomfortable. It's not something you can make light of. And so when they put it in the story, whether they were trying to make light of it or not, when it's framed in a wrestling show, which is inherently mental, like it just you can't look at that and go, that's a good story.
No, so obviously around this time, Lita was accompanying Kane to the ring to do his matches. She would costume matches, she would get involved in matches, and then it would end up in a scenario where Snitsky was involved. And it wasn't his fault. Oh, believe him, it wasn't his fault. He hits Kane with a chair in the back, I think it was. Kane then flopped forward onto a pregnant Lita. They then both tumbled down, and the 300-pound Kane landing on the pregnant lady causes a miscarriage. And what a lovely story.
Yeah, the thing, because that was pretty much it. There was a little bit of feuding back and forth with Snitsky and the blame being shifted and all of this stuff. But then... that's just sort of it. It's like a horrible thing to leave with these characters and then have them move on to a new set of storylines. It did give us Snitsky punting the baby.
Yeah, that was a moment. I tell you what, it did last longer than I remember, because it lasted all the way through until the following May when Lita helped Edge defeat Kane in the finals of a Raw Gold Rush tournament.
Christ.
Yeah.
I never realised it went that far.
Why? It's going on for a year, which I find unbelievable. And obviously after filing for divorce, Lita would throw all kinds of insults at Kane, including claiming that Kane was like a fourth grader in the bedroom. How she knew that is up to anybody's interpretation, Sam.
That's an entirely other uncomfortable line. Like, what are they doing?
So where do you want to go? I mean...
who's writing that script?
I know. This is like, it's Coronation Street, it's Emmerdale, it's EastEnders, all the crappy soaps you want to name in wrestling, which by the most part is fantastic, but I agree with you. Why they go to the sort of miscarriage angles and sort of bring that up for people who have actually been through that horrible sort of thing, I've got no idea. But Where do you want to put Kane and Lita?
The thing is, because it was still very good work by the pair of them, despite the fact they both had to work with such an awkward, awful end to that story. I'd say that the bottom of alright, top of bearable.
I'll go bottom of alright, because it did have
yield
its moments.
some moments, yeah.
It was memorable as well, but sometimes it was a bit like,
yeah, it was a bit like,
kill
can
it.
you do that?
Kill it with fire. So next up, Sam, we're moving on to a less heralded relationship from WWE storyline past. We have a relationship between Tajiri and Torrie Wilson.
See, I remember the loose bones of this one. I don't quite remember the ins and outs. But I remember the loose bones of it.
As far as I can recall, because I remember one of the first VHSs I got, because I got a good school report, so I used to get some presents. And a present one year was Backlash 2002. And Tajiri was walking out with Torrie Wilson, and Torrie Wilson had like one of the geisha robe thingies on. Yeah. And I was thinking, well, that's a bit weird. And that's always stuck with me for some reason. But I just think they got together during the invasion angle. And that was it. Yeah. That was just how they got together. And then they were obviously nice together for a bit. But it was sort of like the Mark Miro Sable angle where Tajiri got jealous of all the attention that his girlfriend was getting. And so he started to be a dick to her. He started making her wearing that outfit to cover her body.
Oh, yeah. And then she had to, like, hide her shame and stuff. Yeah. And it was.
She was being too sexy.
Was Tori with the company by this point, or was she came across in the invasion, right?
Yeah, this was like heading into 2002, this.
Yeah, so like this obviously, it's a big program for somebody that's coming in off the invasion, which is pretty amazing for the fact that they had a lot of women on the roster with WCW, and you could pick anybody. They picked Torrie Wilson.
Yeah, but she had been in relationships before. She had the one with Billy Kidman, obviously, in WCW. Yeah. Super Brawl 2000, she was there with Billy Kidman while he wrestled Vampiro. That was the first wrestling VHS of an event I had. But she liked the relationship, did Tori. I think she got married recently in real life. What am I saying? That's besides the point. We're not here to talk about that. But this relationship would obviously come to an end where Tori would end up costing Tajiri in a match. And then she did that, Sam, by going, bollocks to this. I'm sick of having my flesh covered up by clothes. I'm going to stand up on the announce table and strip.
And Vince falls off a chair backstage.
Probably, can you imagine? Because it was Stacey Keebler when he was in the ring and he did the famous like, and then fell down. Imagine he was just backstage alone doing that. That's a nice mental image. Anyway. Tajiri...
He requested that everybody leave Gorilla. He's like, I want this moment for myself.
Tajiri and Torrie Wilson, when they were being nice to each other... I know I was about 10 at the time, maybe, or 9.
Yeah.
I can't remember feeling much. That was a weird sentence to say. I can't remember, when you think, they're a nice couple together,
there was no connection to the story.
No.
But then, that being said, at the time, it was like, I imagine watching like a NASCAR race is like watching, if you were like aware of what was going on at the time, because we were kids, obviously, so we were just like, WCW versus WWF. But like, watching all of these stories just get smashed together, if you have any like perception of that at the time, must have been just insanity.
Yeah, I guess the breakup was memorable. So where do you I reckon it's if we're putting Kane and Lita in alright, this is going to be lower than that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be lower than alright.
I'd say bearable. It was fine for what it was. It was something for the pair of them to do, but I think we all loved Tajiri when he was a William Regal.
Yeah.
And then Torrie Wilson obviously would go on to do bigger and better things on her own, I guess. So I guess bearable's about right. And then next up, we're moving on to a big one, which is Edge and Vickie Guerrero, which started off where Vickie was punishing, and I say punishing like that because, like Stephanie, she was. Pardon me. She was in on it all along. She punished Edge for his interference in the championship match in Survivor Series by making him the number one contender for the World Heavyweight title. But this was all a ruse because we then found out that Vickie had been, she'd been banging. I sound like Jim off there Friday night, didn't I? Having sex, Jackie. Having sex with Edge behind the scenes. And this was all a plan. Basically, Vickie was facilitating Edge's boner for the World Heavyweight title.
Right. She, I just remember hating her so much.
Yeah.
Just so much.
It's so good to see her back in AEW.
Yeah. It's just how she got so much heat with just 2 words. and just the shrieking and the shouting and the clear transparency that Edge doesn't care about her at all. And like, it was class. It really, really was. I mean, the pop when Vickie came out, she was in a Rumble, wasn't she?
Yeah.
When was that? Was that Evolution?
Oh, I've got no idea. She was back in the day, wasn't she? Like a sort of early...
Yeah, I just meant the modern one where all you heard was "excuse me" and the whole crowd just went. Pfft.
I think it was the first one.
Yeah,
it's so. I think it's just testament how good she was, because obviously she was Eddie Guerrero's wife.
Yeah, and that was it.
And Eddie Guerrero obviously is beloved, and then she came along, and you think, oh, it's Eddie's wife. Like, we can't boo her. And then she was like, she was unbearable.
Yeah, and then she's Eddie's wife, and then she's starting a relationship with Edge, who you're supposed to not like, and it's just like proper. It plays on your emotions if you were a fan of Eddie, and it plays on like how irritating she is, and you can see that Edge is so like just using the situation. And yeah, I think this is great.
Yeah, what took this thing to the next level is when Undertaker attacked Vickie. She was off because Edge and Undertaker were sort of feuding for the World Heavyweight title around this time, initially. And Vickie was attacked by the Undertaker and then came back in the wheelchair. The wheelchair is what made Vickie Guerrero even better than she already was. Because I know what it is. It's the authoritarian just sitting in the wheelchair. Or like Vince, it's like Vince when he can't move his legs at the Royal Rumble in 2005. The fact that he can't move and he's just going. There's just something about that visual that's just absolutely fantastic. So obviously then we had La Familia. That thing happened. Bam nearly stole every single show he was on. And then everything started to unravel when Edge actually proposed to Vickie, in storyline of course. The pair got married. And while they were doing so, Triple H came out again, showed a video. He loved doing this during sort of wedding ceremonies and whatnot. And he showed a video of Edge necking on with the wedding planner, who was Alicia Fox. Oh. Bloody hell. That's the second time Triple H has done something like this.
It's such an attitude era trope though, isn't it? It's like, I'm kind of promo. This thing's happening. There's an event going on in the ring. Music hits. Oh no, there isn't. And then they point at the screen.
But then this, unbelievably, I guess unbelievably at the time, you would feel sorry for Vickie. Vickie became a fan favourite. She then reinstalled The Undertaker and then put Edge inside Hell in a Cell with Taker. That was nice. They were nice. Those Hell in a Cell matches with Undertaker and Edge were fantastic, though, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's just perfection. I can't wait personally for the greatest wrestling match ever.
Yeah,
I want to know what it's going to be.
I thought I was going to go through one video without hearing that phrase, but thanks for ruining that, Sam.
I'm properly just because I just cover SmackDown, so I'm like on a little island here. Like me and Steph are just sat going like, "What's this match going to be?" And then you're all like covering it and like, I don't want to talk about it.
It's because Orton. Do you see Orton's Instagram share about his plane?
Yeah, he bought a private jet, which I find. But he's rich, but is he private jet rich?
I bring it up because in the hashtags of that, he's like, hashtag greatest hashtag match ever, whatever. And he says, hashtag hate, but I don't blame you, or something like that. He's not even on board with it. What are they doing? I don't understand. That's besides the point. But this wouldn't be the end for Edge and Vickie Guerrero, because they were just too smitten to be apart from each other. They would get back together, but then things would go all blazing squad, Sam. They would flip reverse because Vickie would then be caught in the act cheating with who, Sam? Can you remember? Can you remember who Vickie Guerrero was necking on with backstage to cheat on Edge?
I can't even remember now.
It was the star of Netflix's Big Show, The Big Show. John Cena this time was the one to have the videotape. How these wrestlers get these videotapes, I have no idea. So it was going to be Big Show versus Edge for the title, I think, at WrestleMania 25. Cena then did this, spilled all the guts, all that malarkey, and then he got added to the match to make it a triple threat. And then we got to a period of time where Vickie had the opportunity to be either SmackDown or Raw GM. Edge was on SmackDown. She was like, bugger you, Edge. I'm going to Raw. See you later. And that was the end.
I completely forgot that last bit. Like there was a second wave of the story. I just get so bogged down in the big lump at the start.
It was in the locker room somewhere, just Vickie and Big Show sharing a passionate kiss. Oh, the things you see in wrestling, eh? But where are we saying for? I think it's at least one of the top two tiers. It just worked. It was old school. It just worked.
Yeah, and it was just such an effective way to use both people. Top of lovely, or does it go bottom of the best?
I think we go bottom of the best.
Bottom of the best.
I love the partnership. And so next up, we move on to tumultuous relationships. Well, one of them. No, we've got a few coming up now. AJ Lee and Daniel Bryan. Sam, what's your abiding memory from this one?
Well, I always remember Bryan breaking up with her because that's just really horrible. And then she gets her revenge in the end. But it's the kiss. That's the pivotal moment. Is the Mania kiss?
Yeah.
Because obviously Bryan, they're sort of together, and then they're together, and then she gives him a good luck kiss. Bryan kisses her and then gets smashed in like 18 seconds by Big Shamey B. So it's like, that's probably the thing that sticks out the most. But yeah, Bryan blames her for it, eventually breaks up with her. She gets a GM role and then makes his life hell. And CM Punk's.
Yeah.
There's a bit of marriage going on in the middle as well. It just pepper every trope in. Why not? Get Jake the Snake to rock up. Ruin the after party.
The start of this one was so endearing for me because obviously they got together on TV, and then AJ was, I don't know if it was pretty much straight away, but it was early on. She was like, "I love you, Daniel Bryan," and then Daniel Bryan was like, "I appreciate that, thank you."
I love you in a way.
He would never say it back to her, the poor lass. But then it would go on, and things got weird quickly because I think AJ got knocked out by the Big Show, didn't she? And then that sort of...
Yeah, it's like an accidental... Did somebody move, or was it a chair shot or something?
Yeah, it was something along those lines. It was, not a WMD.
Yeah, it was like she took an accidental thing from Big Show. It wasn't intended for her, and yeah. Yeah,
and then we just become more and more horrible to her in the middle of matches and whatnot. She's there going, "I love you, Bryan." She was like, "Shut up, you silly goose.
I'm trying to concentrate and do my technical wrestling."
Daniel Bryan was a 12-year-old boy who obviously lived at home with his mum, and his mum just wanted to come. She just wanted to come down for tea and meet the new boyfriend. That's all she wanted to do. But he was like, "No, I'm not having it." I don't know what I'm saying here. And then obviously we spoke about WrestleMania 28 there. The relationship came to an end soon after WrestleMania 28 because Bryan was obviously pissed off that AJ Lee cost him the World Heavyweight Championship, but in turn set him off on a career that'll be in the Hall of Fame one day.
Yeah, and she's not Hall of Fame. She deserves to be Hall of Fame too.
Oh, of course she does. She's the one. She's the one who started this whole women's evolution thing with that.
No, she's not. Stephanie McMahon invented women's wrestling in 2016 at WrestleMania 32.
Hey, just in case there's people watching who don't know, if AJ Lee didn't tweet that, none of it would have happened. That's all I'm saying. She needs all the props in the world, that woman. But then AJ would focus her attentions on Kane and CM Punk. We got into that storyline, Sam. She helped CM Punk win the title at No Way Out by distracting Kane in the triple threat. And also had Bryan in, obviously. And then while Punk was resisting AJ, all sorts of buggery was happening before AJ proposed to Punk. Punk said no. Bryan, who must have been missing AJ with all of his heart, he said yes. But then AJ left Bryan after Vince McMahon offered her the Raw General Manager's job.
Yeah.
We had...
I think Bryan even pleads with her at one point to marry him, and she says no, I think.
Yeah.
And it's like, she gets that job, but then she uses a position, she turns it round, back on Bryan and back on Punk, mainly. She sort of just lets them have it.
So then but Bryan ended up obviously getting in with Kane, not in that way. Team Hell No started, that was a thing, and obviously AJ would make their life a living hell. But what a mess. Yeah. What a bloody mess.
Yeah, it's a cluster, alright. It's properly, like, it's weird going back and watching Daniel Bryan, who, like we've got such a look on Daniel Bryan now, and he's like such a character, and he's like, you know his entrance, you know everything about him, but like going back and seeing him just be horrible. Yeah. And I think at one point when he tells her, when he breaks up with her, you get a little glimpse into future Daniel Bryan, because he's like slagging her off, and he's like, "You go get in your gas guzzling SUV, you don't care about," and he's like just running her down, and you get a little bit of Eco Warrior peppered in there years before.
So where are we going with this? Obviously they did have some it's a weird one, this, because they did have success, they did have failure.
And it's a really memorable storyline, but it's like, I wouldn't class it as like iconic, so I wouldn't maybe put it in the top 2.
Are we going all right? Is that too harsh?
Maybe it is too harsh. Maybe bottom of lovely.
Let's put bottom of lovely. Oh no,
Yeah.
I've done that thing where the table's moved. I missed my mouse. I do apologise for the edit, Sam.
It's all right, don't worry.
So we have Daniel Bryan and AJ in all right because it was endearing. That was it was horrible to watch for AJ if you were a massive fan of AJ at points because you just want Daniel Bryan to say it back, but he never quite did until he proposed to her. So next up, Sam, we'll have Al Wilson and Dawn Marie.
This one's just perfection.
I asked around the office the other day, just throw any of the more notable WWE storyline relationships at me so I can put them in this tier ranking thing. And Justin Henry told me a thing I did not know. Sam, did you see it?
No, what is it?
So, we obviously all know the first thing that comes into mind when you hear Al Wilson and Dawn Marie is the wedding ceremony in the ring. For some reason, 95-year-old Al Wilson is in massive comedy Y-fronts and nothing else in the ring. Dawn Marie is in lingerie. Apparently during
That's a wedding, mate. That's a wedding. We didn't go to those lengths, but we should have.
Thank God it wasn't, because that would have been demonetised straight away.
Are you telling me you wouldn't like to see me in lingerie?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. But Al had two willies, Sam. One was
Al had.
According to Justin Henry of Cultaholic.com, and I'm not going to doubt anything that Justin says here, Justin reckons that Al had one prosthetic willy inside of his pants, just, for giggles, I guess. But the other one...
Just to pack some meat.
But the other one was a legit semi that Dawn gave him while he was stood in the ring next to her. And I don't know if the second one there was to sort of shield the fact there was a semi by the sea in Al's undercrackers, but apparently he had two willies in his drawers there. So when you go back and watch that segment, and no doubt fap everywhere, all over it, there's something to think about and to ponder. Al Wilson, two willies. But this one, Sam, to get away from that, was...
Hang on. Just imagine getting a semi in front of like 20,000 people. In your underpants.
He's doing it. I tell you what, for a man of that vintage, he was doing well to do it anyway. This is a time before Blue Chew and wrestling was married hand in hand.
Blue Chew, have you seen Blue Chew on Pro Wrestling Tees?
No.
They've got their own page.
Sell
their own merch.
What does it say?
Just Blue Chew t-shirts and stuff. Just stuff with the brand logo on it.
Imagine walking down the street with one of them. Anyway, so this one all came about because Dawn Marie wanted a slice of Torrie Wilson. So she thought, what's the best way to get Torrie Wilson to be mine? I'm going to marry her old dad.
Get under the skin. Yeah. It was a proper memorable storyline. It was just a lot of very sort of soft filter backstage vignettes. A lot of saxophone going on. A lot of interesting... just bewildering. I remember being like, who is this man? I think I'd missed a couple of episodes. Like, who is this guy? And then they kept saying Al Wilson had to connect the dots. I think she said in the promo Dad, and I was like, okay, right.
The worst thing about it all is it's Torrie Wilson's actual dad. Imagine doing that with
he's actually. It's not like Randy Orton, who they've given 5 different wives. They've had 5 different actresses play her. But this is just straight up Torrie Wilson's dad, just with a semi. In the middle.
And a prosthetic willy just to cover it up. But, so, Dawn gets engaged.
Oh my God.
Dawn gets engaged to Al to get to Torrie. But then Dawn comes up with a proposal where she says, Torrie, if you come and meet me in this hotel room, I'll break off the engagement with your father. But despite going to, I forget which pay-per-view it was on, but it was on a pay-per-view. Dawn is in the hotel room, dressed scantily in lingerie and whatnot. Torrie comes in. Dawn takes off her leather jacket. Things happened. The teenage boy in me was oof.
Awfully confused.
No, I wasn't confused. Anyway, so yeah, this Edge during the pay-per-view, but obviously cut off before things got a bit too raunchy. But despite doing all of that, Dawn stayed with Al. She took all of the pie here. That's a turn of phrase.
She took all of the pie. Wow.
All of the Wilson pie, all of the slices. Al and Dawn got married on SmackDown in their pants. Al had 2 willies, which is something I can't get out of my head. And then we fast forward a bit through time. We get to the honeymoon. I forget where Dawn and Al went to. But essentially, There's no easy way to say this, Sam, so I'm glad you sat down. Dawn Marie shagged Al Wilson to death. She made him have a heart attack in the midst of having intercourse. But it's okay though, because Tori beat Dawn twice in wrestling matches on pay-per-views, so she came out on top in the end. Her dad might have passed away in storyline, but she got 2 wrestling wins, so that's okay.
I mean, it's testament to Dawn Marie there that Al died of exhaustion. I mean, Jesus, it's just such a wrestling story, isn't it?
It's just it's the image. I can't think
it's
of
like the side plot in an episode of Dukes of Hazzard. It's like it's proper. Like, how do they even? I know, we'll do this and this, and then we'll get Al Wilson, and then.
But
Christ,
it's hard to put in this. Well, we're ranking this obviously on sort of the success of the relationship, how lovey-dovey they were.
Yeah,
this was never lovey-dovey between Al and Dawn, but it's just the images of Al and Dawn together, and Al and Dawn in there under crackers, and Tori and Dawn, and where are we saying for this one?
This one's top 2 for sure. Just for the simple fact that Al Wilson died of exhaustion.
Yeah. Should we go lovely, lovely, lovely?
I think. Let's hold on. Can we really put it in lovely, lovely, lovely?
Should we change the way we do this tier? Should we just do it as like how the storyline went and how it made us feel?
Yeah, screw it. We'll be doing that anyway
So Kane, I think, needs to come up. Kane and Lita.
Yeah.
Should we put them up in lovely, lovely, lovely?
I think Kane and Lita are in lovely, 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 but bottom of lovely, lovely,
bottom of lovely, lovely, lovely. Al and Dawn. Should we put Al and Dawn in the best? No. Nobody's
going to be angry about that, are they? Put Al and Dawn in the best.
Let's go Al and Dawn in the best. Al got shagged to death. In memory of storyline Al Wilson.
Yeah,
he is in the best tier.
Al Wilson.
I think he passed away in real life recently.
He did pass away recently, as well.
Rest in peace, Big Al. I'll never forget that though. So next up, Sam, we're moving on to Dolph Ziggler and Vickie Guerrero, and this was all about Vickie Guerrero trying to make Ziggler the world champion.
This was just a retread of the Edge storyline. Different flavour to it, but it was memorable, but it wasn't as memorable as that. Like, Ziggler works well as like the chicken poo heel, and having an authority figure that he could manipulate gently worked really well with his character. I quite liked that, but ultimately it was a bit unforgettable, unmemorable, and it was a bit trying toward the end. It felt a bit like it was going on for a long time. Yeah.
So Vickie and Dolph are together on TV as boyfriend and girlfriend, but then, Caitlyn. Remember Caitlyn from back in the day?
Oh, that's a name I have not heard in many years.
She made a brief comeback. Was it in the Mae Young Classic recently? She made a brief comeback. Follow her dog. Simon is fantastic. Anyway, little Boston Terrier. All fantastic dog. Anyway,
I love Boston Terriers.
Caitlyn was caught kissing Vickie Guerrero's boyfriend, Dolph Ziggler. And despite that, they stayed together for a bit.
That's because Caitlyn kissed Dolph, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
That's what Dolph probably told Vickie.
Oh.
Yeah.
What did I say?
Yeah, no, I reckon that Dolph will have gone to Vickie being like, Caitlyn kissed me. I didn't have anything to do with
I see what you're saying. But then we had I'm trying to think of the other sort of like the memorable moments during this feud. We had a coronation for Ziggler, where he was just going to be handed the World Heavyweight Championship, but he was thwarted, what a lovely word, by Teddy Long, who reinstated Edge, who obviously had been feuding with Vickie and all that malarkey after being married. And then Teddy would end up firing both Ziggler and Vickie, which is for a couple. Oh, that's a heavy one to take.
They're not a good tag team, though, are they? You can't really put them in any matchups, so they don't bring much to the table for a Teddy Long regime.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to be good to go. You've got to have a signature with everybody else on the roster.
That's all you want to play. But then we get through that. WrestleMania 27 happens. Ziggler wins the US title from Kofi after that. And then there's a brief period where Vickie was managing Jack Swagger, but then eventually she would get back with Dolph. And obviously Jack Swagger would have said, Sam, But then we get to the end of this storyline, which I'm agreeing with you here. It's not as good as maybe you might think it was, especially after the Edge one, which sort of overshadowed it completely. Ziggler went off with AJ Lee, and he said AJ Styles there. Ziggler went off with AJ Lee, but then AJ was fired for canoodling with an unnamed superstar, which many people thought was John Cena at the time, but it didn't turn out to be John Cena. It turned out to be who?
Ciampa.
It was Dolph.
It was Dolph.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking shoot there for a second.
No, this is storyline still. Everything we're talking about here is storyline.
I was going to be like, I didn't know that she got in trouble for dating CM Punk. I was going to be like, what's this?
So it would all come crashing down and hurt inside. It was a tag team match where the tag team of John Cena and Vickie Guerrero defeated Dolph Ziggler and AJ Lee, and that was sort of where it all came to the end. That's where we put the bow. I'm going to say all right, maybe.
Yeah, it's got its moments, it starts off quite high with expectations because we've already seen what Vickie can do in a relationship angle. And then it just slowly, it's not as if it takes a nosedive, it just slowly does that all the way down.
Yeah.
And it goes on and on and on.
Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? They always say in football, for a football manager, never go back to a club you've managed before. Kevin Keegan should never have come back to Newcastle United, etc., etc. And I think that's the same sort of thing here with Vickie Guerrero and managing heels on Smackity Down. So next up, Sam, Mark Henry and Mae Young.
Best. They had a child, which was a hand, which can now probably actually wrestle.
So this, I don't know about you, but the thing, obviously aside from the hand, which was a joke, apparently how Vince was making a joke that apparently to pleasure yourself, if you were a lady back in the day, you would use prosthetic hands. So the joke was the hand had been inside of Mae for many years.
There's a really funny conversation between Pritchard and Conrad about this, where Conrad's just peeing himself laughing in disbelief. But yeah, it's apparently got something to do with rubber hands or something like that are used as you know.
But I'm going to say the thing that sticks out in my mind about this feud was that scene. Well, it was a few times where Mark kept saying, we were speaking about the testament to Dawn Marie's cardio in the bedroom, we'll say, for killing in storyline Al Wilson. Mark Henry always used to say that Mae Young wore him out. That's the thing that stuck in my mind.
I mean, she was like, Vince next year will be the same age, I think I read this a couple of days ago. Vince next year will be the same age that Mae Young was when she went off the stage through the tables. And if Mae can go off the stage through tables at that age, then I dare like to bet she's got a lot of energy and she's hard to control.
Mae Young was fantastic. But
she can't be tamed. She's wild and free, and she's 78.
I was looking right. I couldn't remember. Sorry, before slightly researching this this storyline. How they got together. And apparently, there was a thing about Mark Henry being a sex addict, where he was going through some sort of like therapy kind of thing. And he claimed that he lost his virginity to his sister at the age of 8, and also he had recently slept with her as well. I didn't
remember that. I remembered the sex addict thing because that it all lent in through sexual chocolate, but Jesus Christ.
Now, if someone needs to verify this for me, because I hope this isn't complete and utter bollocks, but Mark Henry claiming on international television that he lost his virginity to his sister at the age of 8, and around that time also had slept with her again.
But then Vince tried this whole incest angle with Stephanie apparently as well, didn't he? Maybe they just really wanted an incest angle.
Thank God she said no.
But then at the same time, there was all the rumours that they were just trying to do anything possible to make Mark Henry quit. Because he'd signed such a lucrative deal. For anybody who doesn't know, Mark Henry, when he signed, was a very, very, very big prospect in just generally American sports. So when they brought him in, it was like this long-term deal. It was like a 10, 15-year contract.
It was 95 when he signed, wasn't it?
Yeah, 95, 2005. So it was like, 10-year deal. And then very quickly they were like, we don't really want to use him anymore. So they started giving him more and more embarrassing gimmicks and things like that, which is how we wound up with the Mae Young situation. That's the rumour anyway.
Yeah. I think Mark's denied that, but you can see where it's come from because he was put through a lot of crap. I remember one point.
Oh God, yeah.
Something else that'll never leave my mind. It was it Jacqueline and Terry Runnels that were backstage, and Mark Henry was sort of laid out on a thing. Mark was teaming with D'Lo at the time, and he was sort of laid out on this thing, and they were licking whipped cream off his nipples. If you want something to look at from the Attitude Era, that is certainly one of the things to look at.
That's the one. Get it as a wallpaper. Can you get us a 4K copy, please?
Someone needs to verify this thing about the losing virginity stuff. But anyway, that's not going to leave me for a long time. Feuding with Viscera at the time was Mark Henry, and this led to an incident where Viscera would splash Mae Young in the ring while she was carrying Mark's child. And then that would lead to the hand popping out of her.
Covered in goop.
Gold, just so, was it Pat Patterson or was it Gerald Briscoe said, we can just give her a hand. That's the line. You give birth to a hand so somebody can knock that line out the park. But should we just go for the best? It's got to go in because it's so crap. It's brilliant. Yeah, it's far. I like silly bollocks, far-fetched wrestling, and this is as silly bollocks as you can get. And then we move on to something that's. This was a nice relationship. It was Spike Dudley and Molly Holly, Sam.
See, I don't remember much of this. Like you sent me a list of a couple of ideas, like as you were saying, you sent around the office. But that one, I completely drew a blank on. So if you could fill me in, I'd be very happy with that. Yeah,
it was during started towards the end of the invasion angle. It was after WrestleMania X7, the Dudleys feuding with the Hollies, which led to Bubba and Devon turning on Spike, and then sort of Molly was there, obviously being aligned with the Hollies, and she went through a table as well. Spike and Molly got together, but the pièce de résistance was just a nice couple for a while on TV. They were, I love you. Molly, who was she was back when she was blonde and sort of like the girl next door and innocent and all that malarkey. She was Spike was in the ring on Raw going, I love you.
Spike was a human pincushion.
Spike was, basically, He was I love you, Molly. And then she was I love you too, Spike. And she was I'm going to do something to you. It was I think it might have been around Valentine's Day. He gave her a present. And she was I'll give you a present backstage. We can't do it in the ring. Silence.
I just don't. It's just proper mental to see how far wrestling's come in the space of 12 years, 13 years, 14 years. It's just proper. We've gone from mental sex angles and all this crazy stuff, giving birth to a hand, to we stopped off at JBL's poopy. And then we've sort of come gently back out of it to now we can say the B word.
But I think this storyline here hit the heights. It was Stone Cold. He had this petition. He was getting all the superstars to sign it, and he got the Spike and Molly, who were just being nice to each other on a staircase. I mean, just talking nice and looking like a nice couple. They weren't doing anything untoward.
He just walks up and they're proper just going at it on the stairs.
But no, Stone Cold tries to get Spike and Molly to sign this petition. Spike says no, because Austin called Molly a bimbo. And this was the beauty of the Attitude Era, because despite being Spike Dudley, and he was lower down the card, he had his role, didn't stop him from getting a WWF Championship shot. It didn't stop you from thinking, my God, Spike Dudley might win the WWE title from Stone Cold Steve Austin, because Spike Dudley obviously was Spike Dudley. He might have been 150 pounds, which is the same as my leg.
150 pounds soaking wet, maybe.
But he was a gutsy little so-and-so, and he was fighting on the behalf of Molly, in Molly's honour. And it was just the fantastic segment where he called out Austin on Raw, and Heyman came out with a line, "Women weaken brains." As Austin's walking down the ring to kick 7 shades out of Spike Dudley.
Yeah, it's just, I find it just amazing that we have in the Attitude Era you can be somebody like Spike Dudley and you can get a shot like that, but today they don't really invest much in these characters.
No.
People that are lower down the card, they'll still have, we'll have enhancement talent, local talent, all of that stuff coming in and doing all that, and you'll still have lower carders and you'll have all of this, but there just seems to be less backstage goings on, which was always what made the Attitude Era work, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah, and just that Taka Michinoku nearly winning the title of Triple H. It was moments like that. Everyone had something to do, and they were just.
I mean, like there'd be something that opened the show, and then like somebody would accidentally stumble into something, knock something over, and it'd be like, we're having a match, and it was like Triple H versus like this weedy little guy who's just joined the company, and it's
But this thing with back to Spike and Molly. Spike, I think while it was nice, it was a lot of Spike sticking up for Molly and getting hurt, obviously, because he's Spike Dudley. And then we get to the end of it where sort of Molly dumped Spike and became Mighty Molly with the Hurricane. But it was lovely, wasn't it? Spike and Molly. Where are we putting it?
I'm going to leave this one to you because I don't really remember much of this one. So I'm going to let this grade go into your hands. I'm
going to say lovely, lovely, lovely. I don't think it belongs in the best relationships of all time because it wasn't that long-lived, I should say.
Yeah.
But it was still nice while it happened. They look nice together, don't they? Two little blonde people. And so next up we have Kane and Tori, which Anthony Ogogo on a Straight to Hell episode with me completely changed my opinion of, because I always thought, Sam, going back in time in my head, that Tori cheated on Kane to go off with X-Pac, but it turns out that no, X-Pac is just an honourable man. Can you remember anything about this at all?
No, again, like some stuff just falls by the wayside in my brain. I've got a very, very bad memory, so fill me in.
We should just the broad aspect of humanising Kane, which is the first sort of major. We had Kane and DX for a little bit, and he was saying,
I do remember this.
He was saying "suck it" without the voice box thing. What was your? Because I guess the humanising of Kane. What was your thoughts on that?
It sort of it lent in more because we'd had Kane the Monster for quite a while. And you'd seen gently human moments from him now and then. Then you had like the suck it, like all that stuff. But yeah, this was it was a necessary step, and it was probably the first step toward Kane unmasking, I think, in the long run, because the more you humanise him, the more you can get these emotional stories out of him. But I love Kane, and I know you like Kane, and I think humanising him was such a big part of the character that this is important.
Could you imagine if he hadn't unmasked and hadn't spoke, like, yet?
Part of me would still love that, but part of me would always wonder what if, and I'm happy that we've seen the alternative. Yeah. We've seen a bit of range from him as well, but...
I guess saying that, it wouldn't have worked in the social media era, would it? You have to wear the mask everywhere, and no one can do that, can they?
Yeah.
Anyway, Kane and Tori got together on TV, Sam. They were a couple for a while. It was all nice. Tori wore red dresses to match Kane's attire, because all good couples, they match their clothes and whatnot, don't they? That's why we always wear black. But we got to a stage where X-Pac ended up wrestling Tori after Tori, who was still with Kane at the time, complained to Triple H and Stephanie, the McMahon-Helmsley era, about Kane being placed in a handicap match. Obviously, she wasn't happy about that because it's unfair. So Steph...
He's 7'9".
I know.
He's huge.
It's Kane, but it's still unfair. I'm guessing. I think this must have been against DX. I think I'm right in saying that. It would have been against members of DX at the time.
Yeah.
So Steph was like, right, Tori, I'm sick of you. I'm sick of I'm just sick of you, pal. I'm going to wrestle you in a wrestling match. But she ended up pulling a fakey Sam. Rio Ferdinand's World Cup wind-ups. She put X-Pac in her place. X-Pac would end up beating Tori, and this would make Kane mad. So Kane would end up getting a shot at the WWF Championship. It was in December of 2000, I think this was. The stipulation was if he lost to the Big Show, who was the champion at the time, Tori would have to spend a Christmas weekend with X-Pac. And obviously, Kane would lose after DX, the New Age Outlaws, distracted him. So X-Pac would go on this Christmas getaway with Tori, and Tori came back from that and was like, X-Pac's a really nice bloke. He's a gentleman. He treated me like a princess, so he did. So Kane, get to the curb, you monster. I'm going to go with my prince. So yeah, I was thinking that this was just like, Tori cheated on X-Pac, because obviously when she was with X-Pac, she was a heel, and she was being all dastardly and doing all their cross chops and whatnot. But no, X-Pac sort of earned Tori. Is that the right way?
he sort of earned her respect. I guess she wasn't expecting him to be so nice. But then, at the same time, she still kicked Kane to the curb.
Yeah.
And it's like, but Kane's all burned. Because at the time he was all burned, we didn't know that it was just emotional scars. So it was like, you know, he's just had a really tough life and he just needs a win. And Tori, you were going to be like the thing that changed his life. You're going to be the person that made him like happy and everything. And then she just throws him to the curb, just yeets him out the window. Just
yeah, because Anthony Ogogo, sorry, I mentioned Anthony Ogogo at the start because he sent this storyline to hell because he was like, you can't do that to Kane. Tori, get to hell. Are you drinking beer, Sam, at 11:25 in the morning?
Yes, it's really hot in this flat, and there's a church outside, so like the bells go every 15 minutes, so the windows are shut. Otherwise, all you'd hear is like bing bong, like every 15 minutes. So yeah, having a nice beer.
Sam is celebrating the announcement that's coming towards the end of this video. Watch until the
end.
It's
my birthday tomorrow as well.
Is it actually?
Recording, so yeah. So
I mean, of course I knew that. Yes, happy birthday for tomorrow, Sam. X-Pac. Kane and Tori. Where are we saying for this?
Well, the thing is, as you started explaining it, I started remembering more and more about it. I do remember the aspect of humanising Kane, and you sort of drip feed in little bits, and then eventually you pull the whole rug out on the audience, and it sucks. But it is memorable. I'd say it's top of alright, bottom of lovely.
I'll go top of alright because while it was nice to see Kane doing different things to other than
they didn't work so well as a couple.
Yeah, well, it was nice to see him doing different things than just rocking up and murdering folk. It's 97 to 2000-ish Kane. Oh, he was still a monster, but and I guess they did make it nice because they would use Tori to make Kane angry, to make Kane kill people. So it worked nice that way, I guess. But I don't want to see Kane in relationships at this period of time. Anyway, that's just my personal taste. So next up, we're getting on to one which I reckon you might put in the best because it is one of the best. Everyone thinks it's one of the best. It's Eddie Guerrero and Chyna.
Oh yeah, all day. Latino Heat and Mamacita, it's like it's iconic. This did so much for Chyna in my eyes because it took her away from being this one-dimensional character who was all about I'm just gonna break people in half. And as the enforcer for DX, she was very, very, very like linear. Like her whole thing was to just beat people up. She'd have her moments where you'd see a little bit of character development, but it was all sort of very kept, controlled. But with this and with Eddie, I think you got to see so much from both of them. It made Eddie in WWE like completely, and for Chyna it was like a complete overhaul. Like she was a completely different person to the Chyna of the past. So for me, both of them got so much out of this. It was entertaining. It's got to go in the best.
It is definitely one of the best. I'm going to put it in there now before we speak about it a bit more. Put your teeth in, Ross. Anyway, can you believe these two started out as heels together?
Yeah.
That's the way. You always just think of Eddie with the roses and the cards and whatnot.
Kneeling and
everyone cheering them. But no, they started out as heels and then organically were allowed to turn into baby faces. But this all started. Chyna had been Intercontinental Champion, so we've been through the DX phase, we've been through Triple H's bodyguard thing. Chyna had been Intercontinental Championship, she was feuding at the time with Chris Jericho. Eddie wanted Chyna, but initially Chyna was rejecting Eddie until eventually he wore her down. The night after WrestleMania 2000, Chyna turned on Jericho, which allowed Eddie to win Chris Jericho's European Championship, and then she said she couldn't resist the Latino Heat. What a catcher. One of my favourite nicknames, that Latino Heat. I don't know why.
Yeah, Latino Heat. And when he used to make the entrance in the lowriders, man, it was just...
Yeah.
Everything down to the like, even after that with the chair spots and it's just... Oh, Eddie was the best. Eddie was the best. And this was proof that Joni, like Chyna, was one of the best as well.
Yeah.
Like, it was proof that she had range beyond what she'd been given. And she was just class.
It was weird, because she was there as this imposing, like, big, strong, hurty woman. But then you're like, she's endearing. And everyone was on board with Eddie Guerrero and Chyna.
This was it. WWE hadn't really treated Chyna like a woman since she'd signed, because Chyna was very muscular, she was like big, and she was like intimidating, and so they did everything with her, but they never really treated her like a woman. And then you sort of, or even like a human to some degree, like they never really treated her like she had anything else going on. But then when you see this storyline, you see her getting more screen time, and there's a bit more promo time, and there's a bit more back and forth with her and Eddie, you just get to see how good she really is. And that must be the sort of stuff that when WWE signed her, they were like, yeah, she's got that range as well as the look.
It's that thing of like their backs being up against the wall, because you would think on paper, back when this started, Eddie Guerrero and Chyna, that's not going to work as a romance angle. But then these two very talented people just made it work, and it's nice to see when wrestlers do that. Anyway, we're moving on. No, we're not moving on. We're going to just speak about this some more. Why not? Because a memorable moment. It was just the thing that stuck out for me was Eddie Guerrero at Backlash 2000, where he'd been somewhere to accept an award before the show, and he rocked up in his, I think it was a Chevrolet. I think they called it. It looked like a lowrider thing, and he rocked up in his tuxedo and he wrestled in a tux. Do you remember that one?
I don't remember him wrestling in a tux. I'm going to have to go give that a look.
Backlash 2000. I think that was the same show where we saw the show.
I love Backlash 2000 as well.
Is that where we saw the showster? Big Show's Hulk Hogan impersonation.
I think as well. Was Backlash 2000 with the hooks as well?
I think it was the first one with the hooks. I might be mistaken. But things with this one, they sort of unravelled a bit, then tied themselves back up again, then completely unravelled because Chyna was upset with Eddie after Eddie beat her in the King of the Ring tournament. There's no shame in losing Eddie Guerrero. He was a good wrestler. Anyway,
he's one of the best.
Mamacita and Eddie would then face Val Venis and Trish Stratus at SummerSlam 2000 with the IC title on the line. It was weird that this was on the line in a tag team match. The winner of the fall would become Intercontinental Champion. So if Trish Stratus pinned Chyna, Trish, I think, would have been Intercontinental Champion. But no, Chyna pinned Trish to win her second Intercontinental title, and then this would lead to Eddie unknowingly winning the title from Chyna when it was a triple threat match. I think it was with Kurt Angle, and Chyna had been knocked down and she was obviously on her back, shoulders to the mat, and Eddie sort of like cradled her head and was like, "Are you okay?" But in the midst of doing that, the referee counted the fall, so Eddie won the title and Chyna wasn't happy with that. And then we got at the end, and it was a shame to see this one end this way because Chyna caught Eddie canoodling with other women in the showers. Eddie. I won't say Eddie. He's not a dog. Eddie, come here, Eddie. Anyway, it was a shame for that one to end like that. But they would take this one a bit further as well because Chyna, the whole Playboy thing, that was sort of encouraged and promoted during this angle, and then that would set off with the thing was the PTC. Was it called the parents, whatever thing it was, and then. Chyna
would the PMRC or the some parents
PTC, I think, Parents Council.
Yeah.
And then all of that malarkey would set Chyna off in her next storyline away from Eddie, which was against Ivory in WrestleMania X7 and the broken neck.
And then we get the cat, and then we get
her slave. So it's in the best. When you think of Chyna,
I'll tell you one thing though. If you want to see a handsome man, go and find a picture of Eddie Guerrero's dad from back in the day, Gory Guerrero. He's like, you know when you look at somebody and you're like, you can't possibly look like that. He's like that times 10. You're like, how?
I get that with Angel Garza today, me. Whoa, he's got everything. He reminds me of Eddie.
Sort of like, you'd like look at him and you're like, what? He reminds me of Eddie as well. The way he sells, the way his facial expressions, everything. The second I saw him on NXT when I was covering it for Graded, I was like, this guy's... Like, Humberto's great, but this guy's going to be the star.
He's got that.
This guy's going to be the star.
He's got that charisma, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. We're now going on to a big one. A doozy, Sam. Macho Man and Elizabeth. And I'm going to do it now. It's
best?
Top of the best, in it?
Yeah. I mean, it's a sad thing because in the wrestling relationship is the best. In the real world, their relationship was strained and started off great and then sort of turned into something rather horrible if you've watched Dark Side of the Ring, if you've sort of read up about it. So it's a shame that as their popularity as a couple grew, that in real life they were starting to drift further and further apart. But, you know, you can't take away that image of Macho Man, Elizabeth on shoulder, just cheering. It was just perfect. So
I went back and looked, because I didn't know before researching how they actually started as a thing together on television. Because obviously they were a couple before they got together on TV. I'm not too sure about that one, but I think they were.
So they were a couple before, from what I remember, and then they needed somebody for Randy, and he was like, well, why not Elizabeth? and they brought Elizabeth to Vince, and Vince was like, yeah, okay, I see this working. And I can't remember the kayfabe aspect with it, but I know that was sort of how it came to be with Elizabeth getting the gig, because I think it was like, well, we need to find women, and he was like, no, just use Elizabeth.
Yeah, it started with It started with Randy sort of being courted by the likes of Bobby Heenan and Freddie Blassie and all the big managers of the time. They're all like, we want to manage you, Macho Man. I think this was back in 1984 or maybe 1985, one of the two. But the Macho was like, no, I'm going to reject all of your advances. Here is my manager. Here is Liz. And it sort of started out with art imitating life, because if you have watched Dark Side of the Ring, you'll hear about Macho Man being overprotective of Elizabeth around the boys and whatnot, and locking her in locker rooms, private locker rooms and stuff like that, so other people couldn't get to her. That was sort of art would imitate life in the early stages. We would go through sort of WrestleMania 2, wasn't it, where George the Animal Steel sort of fancied Elizabeth, and then Macho Man would retain his Intercontinental Championship against him and sort of run away with her as well. Pardon me once again, I've had a coffee this morning. It's causing havoc with my inside. But Skull Crusher coffee. Oof. It's like strong, very strong coffee, Sam. Put it in the air. Put it in the air. I'm trying.
Is it like the grenade stuff that Adam has on his desk? You seen that? He's got like a grenade.
Probably, but like you put this stuff through the AeroPress. I just want sponsorship for all the coffee malarkey stuff.
I want a coffee sponsorship. It's impossible. Like nobody will do it.
Skull Crusher coffee. It's like a line of cocaine. How do I know that? I don't know. Anyway, moving on. We get the
Nescafe. Get in my mouth.
King of the Ring. We get to, obviously, Macho Man becomes Macho King. He starts being a heel. Despite being a heel, he was being nicer to Elizabeth after being a bit more sort of to her.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did that. That wasn't right. We get through the match. Well, no, it wasn't the Macho King bit, you silly. What am I talking about? That was later on. We're getting towards the Mega Powers bit here, where the Mega Powers would get together, and I don't care what Hulk Hogan says, Sam. Hulk Hogan definitely fancied Elizabeth.
Oh yeah, all day.
He definitely wanted to take Elizabeth away from Macho Man.
Yeah, like the way that he would... And I know that part of the story is that Macho Man was getting so sort of bogged down and transfixed on what was happening that he wasn't really paying enough attention to Elizabeth. He wasn't really looking after her. But at the same time, Hogan was swooping in there trying to make a move on his boy's girl.
Yeah, that's
100%.
Oh, we're not a fan of that one. So it did have its upsides, of course, because Elizabeth would help the pair of them to win matches against the Mega Bucks, who are no relation to the Young Bucks. It was Andre the Giant and Ted DiBiase. She whapped off the skirt thing and woohoo! Drink to that one, Sam.
Yeah.
We get through the Mega Powers and whatnot, and obviously Hogan, he was definitely trying to steal Elizabeth, so he was, away from Macho Man. And Macho Man was right to be angry with Hulk Hogan.
Well, Hogan running backstage to the emergency area and like holding her and like all this stuff, that's Randy's job.
Yeah.
This is not right.
Back off, Terry.
Hulkster.
So then we get to then the King of the Ring stuff, the Macho King. Liz is replaced with Sensational Sherry. We get to the career-ending match at WrestleMania 7, which Savage lost, and after he was a dick for so long, he was as the Macho King and whatnot, but obviously Elizabeth was in the crowd. He's lost that match. Pardon me once again. Skull Crusher Coffee is fantastic. Sponsor me, please. Elizabeth's in the crowd. She can't take seeing Macho Man being so sad and lonely in the ring. He's lost his career. He's dejected. So she comes into the ring to console him. The place goes radio rental. Then we get to the
There
wedding.
are people crying.
Yeah, oh, what a moment it was. If you haven't seen it, it's one of those, it's just a nice wrestling, it's just a nice
that
moment
kid
in
with his little brawling buddy.
that weird hat on.
Yeah.
What was that yellow hat about?
I don't know the hat, but he's got his little Macho Man brawling buddy and he's like jumping up and down.
Yeah, so Macho Man and Elizabeth are back together. We have the SummerSlam wedding angle, the stuff with Jake the Snake and the Undertaker afterwards, and they're opening the present and there's a snake inside. Oh, terrifying. Then we get to because my knowledge is sort of early 90s WWE isn't as good as it should be. And we get to the stuff with Ric Flair and building up that WrestleMania 8 program. And
the Miz stuff with Ric Flair was great.
Ric Flair was claiming that he had a prior relationship with Elizabeth, and he'd got pictures of Randy and Elizabeth and photoshopped Randy out and put himself in there. But later on, it was to get proved that the pictures were faked and they'd been doctored and whatnot. But that would be the sort of final storyline aspect between Elizabeth and Savage, was that stuff with Flair, which they would make it through, but then, yeah, they were obviously divorced in real life. I think it was just slightly before that.
Yeah, it became obviously horrible in real life, but the last sort of great thing they did was the Ric Flair stuff. But even then, that wasn't really super great. You had, the big moment, and that'll always be remembered. There is nothing that's ever going to top that. Not even what happened at Mania will top that. Like that's the biggest moment. The
weird thing, that was a SummerSlam main event, wasn't it? That was the main event, the wedding, which speaks to how.
Well, that's it. That's how popular they were. Like, not even what happened at this year's Mania will make a dint on that.
So next up, we're going off to the greatest love I ever knew. He was the greatest cook of all time. It's Myka Maria Kanellis, which started off, Sam, you were the 205 Live guy back that, they started off on the main roster, didn't it? It was on SmackDown.
Yeah.
Innocently enough, we learned that Mike had taken Maria's name, which is... So
Mike Bennett had become Mike Kanellis, and then eventually he'd start turned up on 205 Live, usually as the comedy foil villain. Like, he'd get, angry, and he needs to prove a point, and he'd cheat to win or whatever. And then eventually it got to a point where Mike was on a losing streak, and this was great. Like, a lot of people don't watch 205 Live, but this was, and the thing is, it bled over into Raw, and people were like, what the hell is this? It's awful. But, sorry. Mike was on like a losing streak, and Maria was like trying to help him. And then she announces she's pregnant, and then she just runs him down because he can't win. And she's been helping him for months to try and win. Like, cheating, all sorts, just desperately trying. And eventually he scrapes a win. But like, she's like ran him down, and then eventually she pops up on Raw to say the baby's not his. And then everybody's like, what? And then where's this come from? And then they disappear back to 205 Live. And then you have this weird period where Mike's like desperate to prove that he's able to provide for his family, and that he's able to provide for his wife and his daughter and the child that's on the way. But then he finds out it's not his, and then there's all this stuff. But like, Mike would snap. I think he'd get a win and it would be taken off him, and then he goes up against Drake Maverick, and him and Drake Maverick had been at loggerheads, like properly going backwards and forwards, butting heads, and it was great. And eventually Maverick's like, all right, I'll fight you. And then they have this blow off match, and it was amazing. It was properly amazing, and nobody cared. And it broke my heart, because it was such a long build from them arriving in 205 Live. And I remember just singing its praises. I think give it an A+, but it was just cast aside.
This is the thing, because it's the start on SmackDown was good. He's taken her name. They've got the theme tune.
It was doing proper cheesy.
It's what it should have been. It was started off well. They had the stuff with Sami Zayn, I remember, and then the 205 Live stuff, as you say, was good. I didn't see it personally.
Surprise! She
becomes pregnant. She becomes pregnant for the first time, and then it was
second time.
I'm going to say the bin, right? Because
was it first time? It was first time.
First time. She's been pregnant twice since the sign with WWE.
Yeah, that was it.
So the cook stuff. She got pregnant in real life, and they worked that into the story.
Yeah.
And then she was saying that Rusev was the father. That went nowhere. She was saying, this is the father. I'm going to reveal who the father is. It went nowhere. We didn't actually find out who was the father, I don't think. But Mike...
No. It was eventually revealed, I believe, that Mike was the father, and that she was just being like angry with him. I think it was revealed.
Yeah.
But it was sort of... There was just a lot of really good back and forth with them, and then ultimately, it just fell into nothing. It's such a shame.
It was just
criminal.
so awkward. It was just when because live crowds were still obviously there, and no one was like booing Maria. Everyone was just sitting in silence, which made it 10 times as awkward as it already was. Because you know that's
no
in
noise
real
is
life.
the worst. Like if you cheer or boo, that's a reaction. If you make no noise, that means you hate this. You're not even going to engage with it.
I think it was mainly because there was so many Cook angles going on at the time.
That's it too. Like it's like Pat Mustard was doing his rounds in WWE, but it's like I don't know. Like I personally like stuff like when Maria like turned on him. I think he shaved his head and he got super serious and he took it really really hard. And as a performer, he got that across really well. And he would scrape by and keep nearly getting a win, like nearly getting it, and he should have had the person bang to rights, and then he'd get screwed out of it. And then eventually he got one, and it was this huge moment. It was just beating like a jobber or something, but it was like this huge moment to rejoice. But ultimately, it just fizzled out, and nobody even knows it was a thing.
Yeah. But I think we don't remember. I can't remember him winning the 24/7 championship, but then I was thinking, yeah, he did, didn't he? Because then he won the thing. And then to continue with this Cook malarkey, Maria made him get in the ring and lay down, and she pinned him and became 24/7 the title holder. And then she would go around the back going, I'm the first pregnant champion ever. And it was more awkward, cringy bollocks, and it wasn't good. And then Mike would end up getting the title back when he I think she was going for a scan maybe for being pregnant at the time, and then he sort of pinned her unknowingly while she was on the table, something like that. It was just I think it's even though you've bigged it up there, I think the cringy awkwardness we saw on the main roster makes it bin worthy. It was just really horrible to watch and not a good idea.
I think if it goes in the bin, it has to be top of the bin. But I'll give you it because like the whole crack was, I think, with Mike and that, like obviously Triple H is rumoured to be controlling 205 Live. And I think he was rumoured to be controlling it through most of the turnaround in that story. But it's just like, when you put him on the main roster, does he still have a say, or are they just doing what they want with them and then send him back to 205 Live? Or I don't know. It should have worked so well, and I love them both so much, and I think they're both great performers, but it just didn't. I'd argue for bottom of bearable.
I'm going to say no, Sam.
But I know you'd say no. Yeah, get in the bin.
So next up we have Lita and Matt Hardy, and this one all started when Lita was in that feud with James Bond, otherwise known as Dean Malenko. That entrance.
That's just so weird.
The entrance video is one of the best entrance videos of all time, which has got all those words that do not describe.
They do the acrostic poem.
Dean Malenko come on the screen like sassy. Oh,
dashing, elegant.
I think he's a good-looking man, but that was too far. But then, obviously, Dean was trying to get with Lita, and then they were having matches and whatnot. And Matt Hardy would then get involved. Obviously, Team Extreme was a thing at the time. Following one of the matches, Matt Hardy would kiss Lita. I think we all remember that kiss on the ramp. It was woohoo! Because these were the cool kids at the time around our era when we were young whippersnappers.
Breaking into the business.
Yeah, breaking. So they would be just... Not much was made of their romance as part of Team Extreme until this kiss. And then it didn't really take off after that. Yes, we knew they were boyfriend and girlfriend, and yes, they were nice together, and Jeff was there as well. But it wasn't shoved down my throats in the storyline aspect. And then it would end up fast-forwarding through time. Matt would go to SmackDown, but then eventually we'd come back to Raw. And then they were together again. And Eric Bischoff was being a weird man around this time. He was sort of pushing himself onto Lita and trying to make Lita do things and make her do Playboy and stuff. And she was commentating on Heat and stuff at the time, and he'd take her off Heat commentary duties because she wouldn't do the Playboy shoots and whatnot. He was being a pervy old man, so he was, Sam. Can you remember any of this?
I can remember sort of, because this was what, 2002, 2003?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Hardys were my favourites in the Attitude Era. I loved them, like in terms of outside of the usuals like Austin and Rock and that. But the Hardys were great. Lita was always great, and I think it was this nice thing for them to be together on screen while being together as a couple and all that stuff. But it's, sorry.
Skull Crusher coffee.
It's sort of unfortunately remembered more this angle because of what comes next, and that's a bit sad that because of what eventually happens that this whole thing's sullied, but I did like them as a team. I think it worked well. I think it was, yeah.
So yeah, it started to unravel, because I can't remember this one, but Hardy and Lita had a tag team match where there was a stipulation: if Lita won, well, if Matt Hardy and Lita won the match, Lita would get a title shot because Bischoff was still being a dick to her. But if they lost, Lita would be fired. They lost, and Matt Hardy berated Lita for being selfish during the match, and that's where it all started to unravel. Then we went through the Kane stuff that we spoke about earlier, and then came the Edge stuff. And we might as well. We'll put. Where do you want to put Lita and Matt Hardy? Because then we'll move on to Edge and Lita straight away.
Lita and Matt are iconic, like, because Team Extreme are iconic, and that's part of the thing, is that they're intrinsically tied to that. So you could put them in the best, but at the same time, they ever really have a featured main story outside the Malenko stuff? And
it was the kiss, wasn't it? Then they were just, as I say, they were always just sort of together before the brand.
It was just very organic. It was like,
I think that was the nice thing about it, wasn't it? Well, it wasn't. Yeah. It was different because we've been through Macho Man, Elizabeth, and stuff like that, and then through the Attitude Era, especially where Henry and Mae Young and stuff like that. So the understated.
We didn't have it forced down the throats either. It was good.
I'm going to suggest the best. Matt Hardy.
Yeah, it's got to be in the best.
It's just it's nice. So we might as well move straight on, Sam, to Edge and Lita. So the stuff with Matt Hardy and Kane was happening, and then Lita was off for a bit, and Lita and Edge started travelling together when she was back, and then things started happening behind the scenes, and then ended up together in real life. Matt Hardy was fired, fans were outraged. Matt Hardy was then brought back due to the real life sort of fan outrage. We had the stuff on, what was that internet show they had back in the day, Bite This or whatever it was called, when Matt Hardy phoned in.
Bite This was, it was pretty bad, that.
Yeah. So we worked all this real life stuff into a storyline, and credit to Matt Hardy and Edge, they were so professional during that feud, which was a blood feud. We had the stuff at SummerSlam where Matt Hardy was busted open and couldn't continue the match, and they had all these matches. Edge would eventually come out on top, and Lita with him, and Lita turned heel, and I think this is the best. Is this the best version of Lita? Where she was the heel, sort of like
as a character, yeah. I think Lita had. She was always sort of innocent. She was always part of Team Extreme, and she was just cool, and she could do all this other stuff, and she was like a unique character. But I think in terms of character development, her with Edge, she's just horrible.
Yeah,
and it's just it works so well because again, it's feeding off a real life situation, and
yeah, I just proper scummy, dirty, horrible couple, neck and on and stuff. And how many times have we seen it in the since Will Ospreay and B Priestley in WCPW? That was like Edge and Lita back in the day. The dirty, disgusting stuff they would do. Swapping chewing gum from mouth to mouth and whatnot. Disgusting. Anyway, we'd have Edge and Lita try. Pardon me once again. Skull Crusher Coffee coming back to bite me in the throat. Skull Crusher Coffee. Trying to get married, they did, Edge and Lita. But Kane, this was still when the Kane stuff was going on. It would bleed into the Edge and Lita stuff. Kane would come back and tombstone the priest, which is a fantastic sentence to say. Wrestling, that is the thing. We fast forward through Edge being a disgusting man. He was Mr. Money in the Bank all the way through that latter part of 2005. New Year's Revolution 2006 comes along. Edge wins the title, and then we get the live sex celebration, which I think was the pièce de résistance of this feud. I think it's the first thing that comes to mind when you say Edge and Lita. They were there in the ring. Lita actually took her clothes off. Yeah, the bed was there in the ring. We saw Lita's nipple at one point. I think they were actually going for it. I think they were said to have done some actual foreplay things under the quilts, the duvet covers. But, what do you want to say about this, Sam? Did this float your boat at all?
It just I want to know who pitched it. I want to know who pitched it. But yeah, it's just iconic, isn't it?
It's iconic.
The live sex celebration is iconic.
But one thing I can't remember from the live sex celebration was it was all interrupted by Ric Flair, who called Edge a disgrace, even though, Ric Flair would do that sort of thing.
Ric Flair can't talk about that being a disgrace.
I know.
Ric Flair the baller. Ric Flair the has loads of girlfriends.
But one thing I can't remember from this is apparently Ric Flair said that Edge was horrible in the sack. So once again, like Lita and her 4th graders, how does Ric Flair know that Edge is horrible in the sack?
Maybe there's a lot more going on in that locker room than we'll ever know.
Maybe there was, but I'm going to suggest, Sam, this is the best. I think they just worked together, didn't they?
Yeah, it's just great.
We'll stick them in the best. And then we're going to a couple who were together in real life from around about 2010, I think it was, but we're not going to speak about that. We're speaking about the It couple from 2016 to 2017, Miz and Maurice. I thought these two were old-fashioned. We had the heel valet manager who would do anything to keep titles on the Miz. I think Maurice returned. We were there, I think, at the Raw after WrestleMania 32. This is when Maurice became an on-screen character once again, where Miz won the Intercontinental Championship off Zack Ryder. I think Maurice confronted Zack Ryder's dad in the crowd, and then she would go on to be the Miz's full-time manager, doing anything to keep the title on him. She was spraying stuff in Dolph Ziggler's eyes. She was ringing the bell to cause distractions. Just old-school stuff, and it worked.
Yeah. Like, Maurice is... She like bounces off the Miz so well. They work so well together. I mean, Christ, the John Cena stuff.
That's the stuff.
The John Cena stuff is just...
That's where we need to just
so good.
Put these two in the best. That feud was...
Yeah.
John and Nikki didn't even do much. They didn't have to, because the Total Bellas spin-off parody thing that Miz and Maurice were doing was just... Maurice's impression of Nikki Bella was frightening.
It was backstage, wasn't it, where Cena's like, "Come on, Nikki, we're going," and he just walks off with Maurice in his arm.
It was like... Miz's stance, how he would like sort of bent over and square at the same time. It was just you think, oh yeah, John Cena is like sort of bent over and square all the time, isn't he?
Proper like dorky, and it was great. It was just walking around the house in full gimmick, and it was like, like that alone is worth price of admission.
Yeah,
but
absolutely fantastic vignettes.
They're just such a great team together. I think hopefully we'll have Maurice come back eventually one day, but obviously they're focusing on a family right now. But I think they work so well together, and I think it is because of what he touched on. It's like a classic wrestler valet manager, like valet/manager relationship. We don't really have much of that today. Managing and wrestling is a dying art. Like it's just not really done much.
Yeah.
Like, and when it is, it's for one or two people. Like, you know, you got Paul Heyman. It tends to be more a mouthpiece thing, but like, yeah, Maurice is like a classic valet. Miz runs his mouth, and she's there. Just back him up, give him a little helping hand whenever he needs it. And
So then, one thing I forgot that happened, Hell in a Cell 2018, I think it was.
Yeah.
Maurice came back, and we had a mixed tag team match between Maurice and The Miz and Daniel Bryan and Brie. I couldn't remember.
Daniel Bryan and Brie?
Yeah.
I thought, really?
Yeah. That was the thing that happened. I couldn't remember that at all.
No.
But the Miz
we will have definitely watched that as well.
Yeah, we definitely...
Like, it's just proper weird when your brain doesn't retain any information from something you know you've definitely watched.
It's just that, it's Hell in a Cell 2018. That is Seth Rollins and... No, it's not. No, it's not, Ross. You just completely made a mess of that. That's Brock Lesnar interfering in Braun Strowman's cash-in. That's what I remember that event for. Anyway, that's a thing that definitely happened. And that's another thing. And then I guess we might as well bring in Miz and Mrs. That's a thing.
Yes. That's it. And I think they've got another season, so it must be popular. Like so, but the thing is that's the thing. You're about to say you don't really watch it. I didn't really watch it. I've watched Total Divas, and genuinely, I was surprised. Like, you can tell a lot of it's staged, but there's some very real things being talked about, especially early on, about like how the women are treated in WWE now. It's not fair, and it's well worth it for that. I've not watched any Miz and Mrs. It could be great, but as long as it's not Holy Foley, Foley, because Holy Foley was poo.
I tell you what, when you do see clips though shared online, it does seem like a bit of a hoot, especially when George gets involved. There's that famous bit where they're all sat around the dinner table and they're speaking about something. I think Miz is like, "Now, George, Dad, we're going to tell you something that we haven't told anybody else." And George just goes, "Well, what do you mean? There's cameras everywhere. You're telling the world, you silly prick." So it seems like it's a good show to watch. I should probably watch it. But yeah, Miz and Maurice, firmly in the best, I think, just for those John Cena and Nikki Bella vignettes alone. And then we're moving on to a current day one that's still going on right now. We have Otis and Mandy. Mandy.
I mean, they're just great. They've had a mixed tag match. It was fantastic. Sonya has been made out of this. Otis has been made out of this. Tucky has been thrown to the wayside out of this. Mandy has been made out of this.
Poor Tucker.
Like, Ziggler's even getting a bit of a revival here.
Yeah.
Like, it's done so much for everybody but Tucker.
It is,
and it was all Mandy's idea as well. This was all Mandy's idea.
Because it was a thing Otis has done on Instagram for a long time. He would just post random pictures of Mandy going, "Look at you, you beautiful peach," and all that malarkey. And then she's seen that and gone, "Wow, we can do something here." Because they obviously are pals backstage in real life as well.
They're quite friendly in real life. Yeah, they like, I think, work out or hang out or something. They do something together, but she just sort of figured it would work. It's the most unassuming storyline. I think we all gently rolled our eyes a little bit when it was starting. And then, we had the Valentine's Day thing, and it was like a bit sad. And then it just kept going. And then Mania just... Oh.
Yeah, it's just that lingering threat, which is still there to this day for me. It's just the lingering threat that they're going to have Dolph Ziggler, the guy with muscles, make the fat lad look like an idiot. That's just the lingering threat.
I can't deal with that thought. I don't want Mandy to turn. I don't want Ziggler to make Otis look like a fool. I think Otis needs to be a superstar at the back of this.
Yeah, and if they are going to do it, let's get legs out of it first. But when it does happen, we want to harm Mandy. Not in that way, obviously, but
that's the thing. The important thing is this has been going on since February, end of January, early February, and it's not boring yet.
No,
and it's the end of May. And this is something WWE haven't managed for quite some time.
Yeah.
So, fingers crossed.
So where are we going for Otis and Mandy?
I'd say best, but you probably want to put him lovely.
Joe Sugar, lovely, just to see.
They're not like iconic, historic. They're on the way there.
That was one hell of a WrestleMania moment, though.
Oh, yeah. I remember I was loudly screaming on next door neighbours.
It was nice, though. So next on, we're moving to a real-life couple who have done some kayfabe things as well, Sam. We have Linda and Vincent Kennedy McMahon, who in real life, Sam, have been together since Linda was 13 and Vince was 16.
Yeah, they met at a choir.
Church choir, where she had beautiful blue eyes and blonde hair. Nah.
Well, this is the thing with Vince and Linda, is I think that despite all the kayfabe, I mean, all the brilliant moments, Linda being a zombie and standing up and revealing that she was there all along and taking the worst stunner in the world, and Vince just putting her through the ringer but Linda still getting one up on him, or the Ric Flair stuff. It was all great. But then when you look at Vince and Linda in real life, stuff like when Vince was desperate to prove to his dad, I want to be a promoter, his dad said to him, okay, there's a territory, I think it was up further northeast.
It is in the northeast,
There's a guy. No, but it was further up northeast from the McMahon territory. But he's like, there's a guy up there that owes me money, and his territory's falling apart. He's like, if you can turn it round, then great, you'll prove to me you can do it. If you fail, I don't ever want to see you again. So Vince and Linda, I think they'd eventually buy a hockey team. They had this venue, this arena, hockey arena. They'd run wrestling in there. But Vince and whoever would book the shows, relating to the company, Linda would go as far as I think Vince had a job at a quarry on weekends, and Linda would go as far as she'd serve drinks and food to people coming in. That's how much they did for each other, because they had nothing. And that's what the whole industry now is built off, is that relationship between these two people.
Yeah.
And they're iconic alone for so many moments, but as a couple, they did everything they could, and then they had kids as well to worry about, and we owe them so much, because the industry probably wouldn't be here without them.
That was a nice speech from you, Sam, but we're not here to speak about the real-life couple. We're here to speak about their dealings in television.
No, but I just told you, for everything they've done on TV, they're iconic alone, but as a real couple,
Because it's just been a tale of woe in terms of storyline.
Yeah, it's been a tale of woe, but, it's been entertaining.
Do you remember when the sort of relationship between the McMahon family caused Linda McMahon to have a breakdown, and then Vince cruelly announced on television that he was filing for divorce, and then while he was doing that, he was necking on with Trish Stratus and cheating on her right in front of Linda's face, and that caused Linda to go into a catatonic state and then sit in a wheelchair for many, many months? Do you remember?
So they're not a role model couple, but
they're still I'd say top of the best. They're still going in there.
They've given us so many moments.
That's the thing.
That's always the thing. No matter how horrible Vince has been to her, they always eventually reconcile. Eventually.
They're like a pair of magnets. Yeah, they've been through some stuff. What is there apart from obviously the WrestleMania X7 storyline?
There was a McMahon in every corner.
Yeah, WrestleMania 2000.
You had Linda with Ric Flair, I believe, wasn't it? Where Linda she sold her shares in the company after divorcing Vince.
Yes.
And then Flair bought in on that. Then Linda sort of gently moves away because Linda wanted to move into politics, which is a shame. Like, it'd still be nice, but you completely understand it. I mean, you've given your whole life to this company. You want to have time to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
I'd like one more angle, but at the same time, they're in their 70s. Let them chill.
Yeah. Aye, so there we have it, Linda and Vince in the best. And then just to round things off, Sam, our final... Can you believe we've only done 19 couples and we've been here for about 7 hours?
Proper massive talk.
We have King Bucca and Queen Sharmell, which all kicked off with the 2006 King of the Ring tournament. King Bucca, well, he would become King Bucca. Booker T won that final against Bobby Lashley, and then sort of Sharmell had come in, sort of 2005 time. We'd been through the awkward angle with Kurt Angle and whatever Kurt Angle wanted to do to Sharmell and stuff like that. And
oh God.
Bestiality, I think, was mentioned, Sam, and stuff like that.
He actually said the words bestiality sex, like that. Like, oh, no.
Lovely stuff. We had,
what were they thinking with that? Like, straight up, what were they thinking with that? It's nuts.
Credit to Kurt Angle for being game for out, I think we'd say in the Northeast. Game for anything, just to say.
I'd have stick it up their arse. I wouldn't have been able to do that.
So yeah, then we got through, I think it was WrestleMania 22. There was a weird squash match where the Boogeyman had been harassing Booker T at the time and Sharmell, and Booker T was squashed by the Boogeyman on WrestleMania, and then the Boogeyman sort of kissed Sharmell with worms in her mouth. Once again, Sharmell being game for out here, being kissed by a man with a mouthful of worms. Disgusting stuff. And then so obviously we get through King of the Ring, and then the King Bucca's big feud was with Batista, which was sort of real life and kayfabe at the same time. SummerSlam came around. King Bucca lost to Batista by disqualification after Sharmell got herself involved. It was all Sharmell would do a lot. It was sort of old school once again. Sharmell doing stuff. Wait, how can it not be old school? He was a bloody king, for goodness sake. She was just doing all sorts of stuff to keep the title in and around King Bucca's waist. It was all right, wasn't it? I think King Bucca. She was very much, as you know, the king thing would dictate. She was very much second fiddle to this pompous king malarkey stuff with King. I think Booker T's work here way outshined Sharmell's stuff here.
Yeah, and I mean, like, King Bucca was great anyway. You had, like, right down to his theme music. Do you know what his theme was called?
Regal Man.
His theme was called Dead White Guys.
Pardon?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. It was called, like, Dead White Guys.
What,
obviously, like portraits, I think it's supposed to be alluding to.
Oh,
like,
right.
Big old portraits of people and stuff. But yeah, when I first saw it, I was like, what? Yeah, it's called like Dead White Guys.
Bloody hell.
But it's, as a relationship, I don't think it's in the greatest, but you had like the all hail King Bucca. Yeah. And it was sort of like the excuse me. It was proper, it just great. It was like nails on a blackboard, but yeah.
Because it wasn't that long lived really in the grand scheme of things. They would soon depart for TNA. The pair of them would go there. So
and arguably have a pretty stronger run in TNA.
Ooh, controversial.
Yeah, but I don't know. I wouldn't put him in the best. I'd maybe put him in top of Lovely.
Should we go top of Lovely? I think it's just the role would dictate that Sharmell was just more of a supporting cast member and.
Yeah.
Not really get involved. Well, she did get involved too heavily, but they didn't really have the moments that other couples had.
They didn't capitalise on it in a way where it was like super storyline driven.
Yeah. So there we have it, everybody. There's our tier ranking things for 20 of the more famous, well, some not so famous, but more famous couples in WWE storyline history. We'll go through it one by one, Sam, just to make sure we don't want to move anything. We have the bin, which is filled with Myka and Maria, just because even though they did do a lot of good stuff on 205 Live, the stuff on the main roster was so awkward and
just confusing,
weird and horrible that it has to go in the bin. We had the sort of nothing relationship jealousy-driven thing between Torrie Wilson and Tajiri, which is just about bearable. Then we have All Right, which was Kane and Tori, and then Dolph Ziggler and Vickie Guerrero. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Then we have Lovely, 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 which is filled with King Bucca and Queen Sharmell, Marella, Bryan and AJ, Kane and Lita, despite the awkward parts, Molly Holly and Spike Dudley, and Otis and Mandy. And so we'll start off, as we always do, the best will rank. What order did it go in the best? We have Linda and Vince, which has to go for the top for me.
Yeah,
despite their issues, they are the wrestling couple.
But they're like the pantheon of the gods, aren't they?
They are.
Without them, we wouldn't have the company where any of these storylines took place.
Yeah. So then next we have Macho Man and Elizabeth, which is just iconic. I think they're second place. So I'm going to say to you, Sam, is Triple H and Stephanie higher than Macho Man and Elizabeth?
No.
I would agree with that. Is Edge and Vickie Guerrero higher than Triple H and Stephanie McMahon? I'm going to say no, me, personally.
No, yeah, I don't think so.
Is Alan Dawn higher than Edge and Vickie?
Absolutely.
Let's move on, but why the hell not?
The man died of exhaustion.
Is Mark and May higher up than Edge and Vickie?
I want to say yes, but it's a no.
It's a no. Now, Eddie and Chyna, is that higher up than Edge and Vickie?
100%.
I'd say so as well. Matt Hardy and Lita, do you reckon that needs to go up above higher than Mark and May and higher than Edge and Vickie and higher than Chyna and Eddie?
I'd say it could move up a couple of positions, maybe not higher than Chyna and Eddie.
Oof, we'll put them there. Edge and Lita. I think this needs to come up some way, does it not?
Yeah, Edge and Lita I'd say is more important than Matt and Lita.
I would say as well. Is it bigger and better than Eddie and Chyna, sorry? Excuse me.
I think so, yeah. As hard as it is to say that.
Dawn and Al?
Dawn and Al. We just did that one, didn't we?
I'm saying, is it higher?
Oh, no.
We'll leave it there. Dawn and Al are doing very well for themselves. And then Myka and Maurice. I think they need to come up higher than Mae Young. I think they need to come up higher.
For sure.
Do they need to come up higher than Edge and Vickie?
Yes, maybe. Yeah, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Higher than Lita and Matt? I think so.
Yeah.
Higher than Eddie and Chyna?
No.
We'll leave it there. So there we have our best tier, which goes Vince and Linda, Macho and Liz, Triple H and Stephanie, Al and Dawn, completely deserve to be there, Edge and Lita, Chyna and Eddie, Miz and Maurice, Matt and Lita, Edge and Vickie, and then rounding things off in the best tier for couples in history, we have Mark Henry and Mae Young. And just, where would you put us to, Sam? Where would you put?
Well, we're in the best, obviously.
Obviously, and so we have tickled the ball sack, the proverbial ball sack for this entire video. Textbook Gary YouTubing. Sam, I'll let you take over here. What is the big announcement?
So, like my parents told me when I was 9 years old, it's not that we don't love you anymore.
Oh my god!
It's just we need to be apart. And so, unfortunately, 1 year and 1 day, as we record this on the 29th of May, 1 year and 1 day to our wedding, we've announced right now, or we're announcing right now, that we're filing for divorce. We've started proceedings with a solicitor. So, unfortunately, this is the end of the line for, is it Ram or Sauce? What are we called?
Regret?
Regret. It's the end of the line for regret.
There we have it. There's the big announcement. It couldn't have happened soon enough, quite frankly.
Yes,
why are we sat here still
I can't believe it took us this long.
Yeah, bloody hell.
Yeah. Get to change my name back on Twitter now. Nice.
That's it for this tier ranking thingy. Let us know what you think in the comments below. No doubt about it, you disagree with everything we've said right here, right now. I've been Gary YouTube from Cultaholic.com. Any closing thoughts from yourself, Gary?
No, this has just been a really nice tier, this one. I quite like the longer discussion.
Yeah.
With the fewer things.
A lot that goes at storylines. They're fantastic, aren't they? We don't see enough of them these days, but we're getting back to these times where Otis and Mandy and the Hacker and stuff like that. Storylines are coming back. Good stuff. That's it for this video. Join us next time. I've got no idea what's coming up next. Let us know in the comments below what you want to see from future tier list videos. Bye. Wave to the camera.
See you later.
Bye.